Hello, third grade boys and girls, and welcome to Bethune's virtual world of math. I am super stoked about this week's lessons. I am Mrs. Levine, and I will be conducting the video lessons for all of third grade math teachers for week 2. Okay, let's get started. Today we will start with iReady Lesson 24, Day 1, titled Solve Problems Using Scaled Graphs. The standard that we will cover today is MGSE3.MD.3, and it simply states, draw a scaled picture graph and a scaled bar graph to represent a data set with several categories. Solve 1 and 2 step, how many more and how many less problems using information presented in scaled bar graphs. So your goal, your learning target today will be, I can make a scaled picture graph or bar graph with several categories to represent data. Now, let's start with use what you know. This page models how to read and interpret a picture graph. Take a minute and read the description of the graph and study the data shown on the graph. While you are studying the graph, make sure you look at the key at the bottom of the graph. The picture graph key that you've probably worked with before probably had each symbol to represent just one thing. And this time around, the symbol in the key may represent more than just one thing. It could be 2, 5, 10 things per symbol. So pause the video to study the graph, and I'll be right back. If you studied the graph, then you should be able to tell me how many points does each basketball symbol represent. If you said 2, then you're absolutely right. Kudos. Good job, boys and girls. Now, go back up to the top of the page so that we can complete the word problem for this page. Let's read the directions. You have had practice modeling and solving word problems. In this lesson, you will use information from graphs to solve word problems. Take a look at this problem. The word problem reads, Ron kept track of the points scored by his teammates during a basketball game. He recorded his data in the picture graph shown below. How many points did each teammate score? So as you look over this graph and answer these questions, I'll give you about 3 to 5 minutes. Pause the video and I'll be back to see how you answer those. Boys and girls, I'm back. Let's see how you answered. The first question, letter A, says the sentence at the bottom of the graph tells you that each basketball stands for, and we're looking at that key, you should have written 2. Okay, letter B, there is 1 basketball next to Alan's name. That means that Alan scored 2 points. There are 3 basketballs next to Kate's name. That means we can skip count by 2 3 times. 2, 4, 6. So letter B should be 6. The next question, letter C. How many basketballs are next to Gary's name? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you could skip count. It says how many basketballs are next to Gary's name. Skip count by 2 and get your total amount. We counted the actual basketballs, but the symbols say each basketball represents 2. So I would say 5. I could use a strategy, 5 times 2, or I could skip count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I could also use repeated addition. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Hopefully I did that 5 times. Letter D. How many points did Gary score? He scored 10 points. Okay, I jumped ahead of myself. Let's go back to letter C and answer the question that they asked. How many basketballs are next to his name? I started that off right. I jumped ahead. Let's go back. If you put that 10 because I made you erase it and you had 5 first, my bad, boys and girls, you were completely right. It should be 5 there. See, teachers make mistakes too. How many points did Gary score? And that's where we should put the actual 10 because we skip counted, or either we repeated addition or we did multiplication. All right, let's jump down here to letter E. Explain how you could find the number of points May scored. Well, let's go up first and let's count. I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, or I could simply say in my explanation, I could skip count by what? 2, 4 times to get 8 points. Okay? So that's the way you could explain that one there. I'm going to pause real quick and we're going to go on to the next page. Get ready. But before we go on, I want to go back and explain some of the vocabulary that you're going to need in order to really be successful on this lesson. Okay, I am back. Let's go over these vocabulary words really quick. Your first word is interpret. And interpret is simply you're able to tell or explain the data and the information on the graph in your own words or by reading what you see there. Scale would be the number along the bottom of the graph. So a lot of times you're going to see underneath the graph, skip counting either by 2s or 5s or 10s. And a picture graph that you guys are working on is a graph used to display and record information and data. And it's basically represents, or they basically have on the picture graph symbols, and they represent a certain amount using that key. Each symbol will. A bar graph shows comparisons between categories of the data, and a bar graph can either go horizontal or vertical. Now you also have a key at the bottom of that we've been referencing, and it just tells you the amount the symbols are worth, or what they should be on to represent on that graph. The next word we do have, and I didn't place it there, is data. And we all know that data, because you guys have done this since first grade, second grade, but we can recall and say that data is information, okay? Information that's recorded on the graph or the picture graph, okay? Going back over to the page, we're going to complete Find Out More. And it simply states, look at Ron's picture graph on the previous page. The key, and that's here, if you want to go back to it, okay? And it says the key tells you that each basketball stands for 2 points. And you can multiply the number of basketballs by 2 to find the total number of points each student scored. So here it's labeled the title, in this section students, and this section the number of basketballs, and it tells you what they are, what operation they're doing, which is multiplying, and the points by each point, which each basketball is worth 2 points, and what it equals, the total number of points equal. So they do that throughout each student's name. Now they have the same basketball data can be shown on the bar graph right below, and the bars on the bar graph below show how many points each student scored. Okay, so it just kind of gives you that scale at the bottom of each points. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And Alan, it stops at 2. And Kate, it stops at 6. Gary, it stops at 10. And May, it stops at 8. So it's just basically the same information on there. The number along the bottom, of course, what I said, of the bar graph are called scale. And the scale marks off equal sections. On this graph, each number on the scale is 2 more than the number before it. And the scale counts by 2s. So use this information as I leave you to reference back and come back when you need to know how to complete the pages that you're about to be left to do independently. But first, before I leave you, I want you to reflect and make sure you understand what would it mean if the symbols for Alan was half of that basketball symbol? Then how many points would Alan have scored? Explain. So if you were explaining, as I typed here, you should have written, if I can get over there. One point, that's the answer. What would it mean if the symbol for Alan was half. And how many points would Alan have scored? So 1 point, right? And if it was a whole basketball, it represents 2 points. Then half of a basketball would represent 1. So that would be an acceptable explanation. Boys and girls, before I take off, I'm going to go over this next page because it's kind of jumping into what you guys are going to be doing next. And you're basically, this is the read and interpret picture graphs. And at the top, it says, read the problem below. Then explore different ways to answer questions about the picture. So if you're looking at this graph here, it says Jamie asked students in his school to choose their favorite season. And that's the title, favorite season. The picture graph shows how students answered and how many more students chose summer than chose winter as their favorite. So if you look down below, remember each one of these smiley faces doesn't just stand for one, it stands for 5 students. Okay, so they actually showed you how to go and picture it in your minds, draw it out. You can use pictures to understand this problem. So remember that each smiley face, again, stands for 5 students. So in the winter, there are 4 smiley faces there. So they drew out 4 boxes and they put students inside the box to represent the amount. So there's 5 students in each one of these boxes. You can skip count by what? 5, boys and girls, 5, 10, 15, 20. And then for summer, they're making a comparison. There are 1 smiley face, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So of course you're going to skip count again, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So there are 30 for the summer. It says how many more students chose summer than chose winter as the favorite season. So those are the 2 seasons that you're comparing in order to answer this word problem. Go back, but go on to model it. They also used a number line, and you can use this number line, draw it out, and remember that you are going to have increments of 5. There's skip counting on this scale at the bottom. We can say that of 5. So make sure that you are knowing how to jump those marks and mark it there on your own scratch paper that you may have, your journals, and as you complete this using your number line. So we have summer, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, so you can figure out what operation you need to do in order to find your finalized answer. Okay, I'm kind of rushing through this a little bit because we only have a few more seconds or a few more minutes left. After you have looked over those examples there, you're going to jump down to connect, and you're going to go ahead and complete this and make out some equations. And it says now you will solve the problem from the previous page. So you're going to scroll back up to that page and use that information as well from that graph. Excuse me, not that one, but this one. And then complete and answer the questions 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. Now, keep in mind, after you've answered that, and there's also a 7, 8 as well that you can do the try it. But keep in mind the way that we were answering and explaining those answers earlier in those complete thoughts and complete sentences. You can do the same for this page. Now, here's where I really stop, boys and girls, because I only have a minute left. So now, boys and girls, I'm going to stop here and allow you to complete the remaining of the pages independently. And if you run into problems, be sure to refer back to the previous pages. Also, use the vocabulary page that I plan to upload in order to reference back and make sure you have clear understanding. There will be teachers available from 12 to 2, Monday through Friday. If you need more assistance, I am here for you. Happy learning. And make sure you complete the entire page. If you need me, I'm here on Teams. Okay?